Step through the door marked restricted on the 18th floor of the CBS Madison Avenue, New York studios, or through a hidden portal in the soundproof glass partition of NBC's specially designed Colonial Theater on Broadway, and you'll find yourself in a flickering world of color. The only light comes from rows of TV monitor screens. Some are alive with scenes in full color, playing across the glowing phosphors like miniature movies in Technicolor. Others duplicate the same pictures in black and white. Green graph patterns tremble on oscilloscope screens as technicians manipulate scores of dials and switches on the panels before them. Hushed voices of earphoned producers, technical directors, and video control men drone back and forth in weird, technical lingo as they issue orders over an intercom system to cameramen, actors, and stagehands outside on the set. Too much red on number 3. There's a kick in that vase lip on number 2 preview. Move it back. We pick up convergence on number 2. How's your registration? Gamma check on number 4, please. These are the control rooms for the new coast-to-coast color telecasts. Both NBC and CBS have been telecasting color shows around the East Coast, and NBC has even microwaved color shows to the West Coast for many months. Starting with the Rose Bowl game on New Year's Day, NBC expects to send out several network shows weekly in color. Most of their 70-odd primary stations have already agreed to put in the $22,000 color conversion equipment, and more are expected to follow. If the shows look just as black and white as usual on your set, that's because you happen to have a black and white set. If you'd been watching the same channel on one of the handful of existing color sets owned largely by TV and advertising executives, you'd have seen the show in a dazzling array of brilliant hues. Actually, those same color signals were streaming down your own antenna the whole time, and while your set can't translate the signals into color on its black and white screen, it can still produce a perfect black and white picture from the same telecast, no matter whose network is beaming the show. According to the big networks, color TV is here to stay. By the end of this year, 50,000 color sets will be operating, but don't get too excited unless, as one set manufacturer puts it, you're in the mink coat and foreign car category. The first sets will cost about $1,000, and most will go to potential advertisers and engineers. As mass production and simplification sets in, the price tag is expected to move down, but it may be several more winters before the price levels off at what manufacturers guess will be about 100% higher than black and white today. For a while, replacing a picture tube will cost as much as a whole black and white set, about $250. Since color circuits are more complicated, repairs will cost proportionally more. You'll be able to convert your old set, if you want, but even that will cost between $500 and $800. About the only part of your present equipment that works equally well for color reception is the antenna, if it's well designed. In spite of all this, color is definitely in your very near future. The first big handicap has been hurdled. Until recently, color had bogged down in a battle of systems. One big sticker was that not all the systems could be picked up in black and white on the 25 million standard sets now in American homes, unless people bought special adapters. To protect billions of public dollars, the industry refused to commercialize color TV until all its members could come up with compatible standards. This meant that a program must be seen in color on color sets, but must also be seen in black and white on present sets without adapters, and regardless of the type of equipment used to telecast the show. For 2 years, the NTSC, National Television Systems Committee, made up of representatives from each network, has worked to set up specifications that would make the big dream come true. Finally, last October, FCC members saw the results. On color receivers produced by 13 different manufacturers, NBC's Nanette Febvre sang before a multi-hued background. Dancers in colorful costumes whirled across vivid color sets. Pretty girls flipped swirling red skirts to show brilliant green slips beneath. Then, CBS took its show outdoors to prove how well its color cameras worked on remote pickup. In a program called Autumn in New York, the lenses panned garden colors, climbed to dizzying skyscrapers in Midtown, browsed through a sidewalk cafe to zoom in on dishes of pink lobster, bright, delicious-looking salads, and plates of sweet red berries. The Allen B. Dumont laboratories flashed close-up and distant shots of brilliantly colored scenes across the phosphors. And all the while, regular black and white sets beside the color screens faithfully reproduced everything coming in on all the channels. As for those 13 different color sets, they looked exactly like black and white receivers, but the cabinets were larger by half. For the present, color screens are 14 inches, producing a 12.5-inch wide picture, but 21 inches are in the works. In many recent color demonstrations, technicians have hovered over sets, tinkering and making adjustments, leading observers to wonder if every color set would come equipped with a built-in electronics engineer. Last November 1st, when NBC microwaved Bizet's opera Carmen in superb, delicately shaded colors, news and magazine reporters were loaned color sets and permitted to tune them in unassisted. How do they work? Remarkably well. A typical set has 5 or 6 knobs. 4 are the familiar ones on your standard black and white monochrome set: channel selector, brightness, contrast, and focus control. Only new one is the chrome control. Turn it all the way left, and color fades to a bland, washed out mess resembling a badly overexposed color transparency. At far right, color jumps out in a dense intensity and brilliance, startling but hardly true color. In between lie the subtle shadings to suit your taste. There's also a convergence control, a delicate adjustment for aligning the 3 color signals coming into the tube so that they strike the tube face in perfect register. If this adjustment is off, people on the screen may suddenly develop green or red ears or grow purple halos. Actually, TV color signals are identical to black and white, but instead of a single signal carrying a single picture, there are 3 signals riding together, carrying 3 separate images. One shows all the red values in the scene being shot, another all the green, a third all the blue. Each network has its own special cameras and gear for breaking down the scene into these 3 colors. What the NTSC has set up is not a new system, but a set of standards. It's like standardizing railroad tracks, explains NBC Chief Engineer O.B. Hansen. Any railroad can streamline its cars and engines, but all must fit the same gauge track. Like railroad cars, each network can run its own equipment, as long as it fits the same standards. When the signal leaves the transmitter, it is the same for all networks, 3 color signals riding in close frequency to black and white and sound signals. All this electronic information is picked up by your home color receiver. The black and white signal tells the set how much brightness is in the picture. Impulses for each of the 3 color images are separated and zipped to 3 electron guns, one for green information, one for red, and one for blue, at the base of the big tricolor tube. The interface of this tube, pioneered by RCA and recently modified by CBS, is coated with up to 750,000 dots of red, green, and blue phosphor, mechanically arranged in 250,000 tiny triads. Behind this surface, a perforated screen or shadow mask with 250,000 microscopic holes is so perfectly registered over the triads that the 3 electron beams angling through them hit only the right phosphors. The green beam, piercing a tiny hole in the mask, hits the green phosphor of a triad and makes it glow. The red beam, angling in from another direction through the same perforation, is masked from the blue and green dots, but tickles the red one. Thus, each beam lays down its own image in its own color. Since the dots are so tiny and closely packed, your eye melts them together into one picture in true-to-life color. In the host of vital circuits between scene and screen, startling things occasionally happen to the colors. If the 3 guns are out of alignment, you get a cascade of color flecks instead of the picture. 1 or more colors have been known to drop out until emergency equipment could be brought into play. Though controls on present sets are simple, you may find yourself diddling with dials a lot more to get the picture you want. Color signals are more sensitive to interference than monochrome, and an accurate shade may stubbornly elude capture. Vance Halleck, producer in charge of color for NBC, wryly recalls that during the 1950 FCC demonstrations, transmission engineers fought bitterly all day with the receiver engineers, each blaming the other for the poor color coming through. Finally, during a break, he says, I sent out for green bananas and substituted them for yellow ones in a fruit bowl on the set. Soon as we started up again, a receiver man called up, screaming, What's with the green bananas? Don't know what you're talking about, I told him. They're yellow on our monitors. That kept him quiet for half an hour. Then he called again and said, Got your yellow bananas, but your apples are blue. Halleck and his counterpart at CBS, Jerry Danzig, still shudder over some of the whimsies of the new medium. The minute anyone steps into a shadow, his face may turn a hideous green, purple, or other unlikely shade on receiver screens. A blue dress may go dirty red. The shade problem makes remotes a tough job, too. Last year when NBC ran a sneak preview of the Penn-Columbia football game, everything was fine until the last quarter. Then, says Vance, the sun went below the stadium rim and the final quarter came through in a greenish black and white. Indoors or out, color TV requires more light than monochrome. RCA, NBC's parent company, says 3 times more. CBS says 6 times. Art museum guards, in charge of a Picasso painting in one scene, were sure the oils would melt and run on the priceless picture. They didn't, but everyone trembled. Hurdles still confronting color are technical and economical. Most TV executives are confident they'll all be solved in a relatively short time with the brains and effort being applied today. Already, with all its whimsies, color is cutting dollar corners in a few areas. We can paint our scenery with light instead of paint, Halleck points out. We built a gray cyclorama for the studio. By playing lights through varicolored gelatins, we can give an audience 500 different backgrounds per hour if we want. That way a set can be varied all night at no cost. We can paint objects and costumes with colored spots, too. Everything but flesh tones. Flesh is the key to all color TV, and it's giving technicians some headaches right now. At NBC, cameramen tune in on what they call gamma chips, 3 bars of shading, 1 black, 1 white, and 1 a flesh tone, providing full color range. When these are right on the monitors, everything comes out right, they claim. To make sure, they run further tests on color bars. Finally, they tune in on Marie McNamara, a pleasant chore. Marie is a natural auburn-haired beauty who has been tuned in on by RCA color cameras daily for 2.5 years. Her natural skin tones are perfect, and her hair, one of the hardest colors to telecast correctly, is among the toughest tests we have, Halleck explains. Radical simplifications in technique and equipment are being announced every month. CBS claims that its new Colortron tube is a simplification of the shadow mask type that suddenly makes possible mass production of one item that posed manufacturing sticklers 6 months ago. The tube will be in pilot production next month. By next September, 15,000 are expected to roll out each month. RCA's big 3-tube color camera that does everything in one operation, but is a cumbersome $65,000 affair, already is obsolete. At RCA's Princeton labs, technicians are shooting successful color with a camera the size of a standard black and white job. 3 miniature Vidicon tubes, no bigger than 2-cell flashlights, do the work. The same men are also dollying a brand new single-tube camera that works like a tricolor receiver tube in reverse. One of the hottest color developments, quietly being perfected in Paramount's laboratories, is a receiving tube known as the Chromatron. Owned by Dr. E.O. Lawrence, who invented it, and Paramount Pictures, who financed its development, this tube may speed the arrival of lower-cost color sets. Instead of using 3 electron beams, perforated masks, and thousands of phosphor dots, the Lawrence-type tube has a single gun, like a black and white tube. Across its screen are 900 vertical lines of red, green, and blue phosphor. The gun fires red, green, and blue signals at the screen in an ultra-rapid sequence through a grid of vertical wires. As each tiny color impulse flies between a pair of wires, it passes through a magnetic field that bends it toward the right phosphor. Other startling things are in the works. A big headache for advertising men has been the fact that color films don't work well on color TV. Now they won't need film. Brigadier General David Sarnoff just announced that RCA's Princeton scientists have perfected a method for storing color signals on half-inch magnetic tape. It does away with all chemical processing. A color show can be stored indefinitely and played back any time, or the tape can be wiped and reused. Magnetic tape recording of video signals, says the general, should make possible a simple means by which a TV set owner can make recordings of television pictures in the home, and they can be performed over and over. Nobody believes that color will completely replace black and white. There wouldn't be much point in seeing wrestling bouts or horse races in color. Dr. Dumont has pointed out that Technicolor didn't replace black and white movies. Neither, he says, can it happen in TV. There will always be plenty of monochrome shows to watch.